fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on now this afternoon, and Graham's going to talk to us a little bit more just about kind of a wider vision of spiritual life in schools. He's going to talk us through that, and then we're going to have just 2 or 3 questions just to think about and consider how we can apply that to our own situations and contexts. Okay, Graham.
Liz mentioned a resource earlier on. I looked it up whilst she was talking. That's it, the Stapleford Centre, 40 Creative Ideas. If you want to look at it, I just put in Lunt 40 Creative Ideas, and that's what it came up with. This is a short session. When Phil originally talked to me about this session, he asked if I would just do a few minutes towards the end to do with vision for the future. And it's quite interesting because I came this morning with a couple of questions to leave you with in my head, and I didn't know what the afternoon was going to be, and I found that as the afternoon started and then rolled on, the questions that I'd actually come with almost exactly replicated what we were looking at this afternoon. So that might actually tell you something which is quite interesting. But before we go into those, I just want to tell you about this little school, which is about 20 miles away from here, which I went into earlier this year. And it was a school where I was actually quite blown away by the level of spiritual development of these young children. It was actually a Catholic school, and what it demonstrated was what impact you can actually have in a school and on the lives of young people if there is continual input into their spiritual development. I'll illustrate with a conversation that I had. I interviewed some children from year 6. One was a Catholic. He said he was a Christian. But it was in a Catholic school. One was a Sikh. One was a Muslim, and one was Hindu, I think. So it was a very mixed group of 4 pupils. They were 11 years old. There were 2 boys and 2 girls. And I asked them what it was like in a Christian school, because it was a faith school, when they were of other faiths. And they said, well, it's wonderful because actually we learn about each other's faiths and we learn to respect each other. And we find that a lot of the things that we believe are very much in common. And we had quite a wide-ranging conversation. And one 11-year-old at one stage in that conversation, to a suggestion that I put forward, which was meant to be provocative, he said, that doesn't happen here. He said, we all love each other. Now, that's not natural vocabulary that comes from 11-year-old boys to 11-year-old boys. But it was natural. And what you saw throughout the school was a level of thought and consideration and respect and willingness to listen to others that I've actually rarely seen. I sat down for lunch with the pupils, and the boy next to me asked if he could pour me a glass of water, and normally they just get on with their meal and their own things, and so he poured me a glass of water. And then somebody walked by and noticed that I'd put my tray down by the side of the table. He said, can I take your tray back for you? And then somebody else came up and noticed that I'd only got a main course, and he said, would you like me to go and get you a sweet? And he went off and got me something else. And then somebody else came by. And you see, this isn't natural behaviour. This isn't what normally happens. It comes about because of what the adults in the school did, and because actually it was consistent across the whole school. It was part of the ethos of the whole school. And as part of that ethos, They said grace before meals. They said prayers at the beginning of the day. They said prayers at the end of the day. They wrote their own prayers. They didn't feel self-conscious about any of this at all. They didn't have prayer spaces, but this was a display on the wall in the school. God in our school, which I thought was wonderful. It's on their website. And the thought that I wanted to leave, or the key thought, and then there's a subsidiary thought to that, is that when we go into schools, and I'm talking about we because not everybody does, but I'm taking it as a corporate we. When we go into schools, we will have an impact, but sometimes it's an impact that lasts for a week and then dissipates, and then the impact may come back if we go in again. And it may be something that for one or two pupils or some pupils has a lasting impact, but for others it's there, it's beneficial, it's good, but it's then quickly forgotten. I suspect that amongst us all there are plenty of people here who've been through fitness regimes and diets and all of those sort of things. You know, the fitness regime, the New Year one, right, I'm going to get fit this year, and it starts off wonderfully and you have a few days of pain and then it ceases. You see, it's no good unless it carries on, unless it's continuous. It probably, well, no, it's not no good, but I think you know what I'm trying to get at. We've got to continue it. Spiritual development is about development. It's an ongoing process. It isn't a once in a while thing. So here's the thought. How can we continue the momentum which clearly starts when we go into a school? Now, actually, the difficult thing is starting very often. You know, we use far more fuel in the car to get the car to start than we do to enable it to continue at a certain speed once it's got up to that speed. So how do we continue the momentum that is started when we go in and have this wonderful week with pupils to get them to think in a much broader perspective, to start them thinking and realizing that there is someone who cares for them, that prayer is something which is going to affect them and their lives. So how can we, as individuals, as groups, as people working as part of a team, promote pupils' spiritual development, not just for a week, but throughout the year? And people during the day have shared some thoughts. And I think we've got to think more widely than just doing the same thing and continuing it for longer, because actually your fitness regime might call you to do certain things to start off with and then different things to maintain it and continue it. And then you might need to do a burst of something else. The same thing for diets, all sorts of things. You can think of quite a lot of parallels. And what we need to do is to look at and investigate and then invest in ways that are going to help these young people move on from the wonderful experience that they have. And I think universally, for nearly all of them, it is a wonderful experience. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I want to relate back to our church situation. Ever since we've been in our church, which is just over 20 years now, it's the longest we've been anywhere, we've had youth work going on. We have young people coming in on a Friday evening. We don't have huge numbers of them coming on a Sunday, but quite a lot coming on a Friday evening, age 7 to 11, and then 11 upwards. We run a holiday club in the summer, but rarely does that translate into young people then moving on and becoming members of the church. That doesn't mean to say that we haven't sown seeds, that those seeds won't germinate and at the end of the day produce fruit. But there's a missing ingredient. And the missing ingredient is that we're not reaching the parents and the whole family. We're just actually reaching the children. Now, for the child can come along and be hugely enthusiastic, want to move on, in holiday club make a commitment. They go back home to their parents who are non-believers, and the holiday club has just been a nice breathing space for them to get rid of the kids for 3 hours in the morning and just have a bit of quiet time for themselves. And the child goes back and they say, guess what happened today? Said, I've given my life to Jesus. And they, oh, that's lovely, darling. We've got to go shopping now. And on Sunday, the child says, can I go to church? No, sorry, we can't do that. And the next Sunday, I want to go to Sunday club. No, I'm sorry, we're going to do something else. And it dissipates and it evaporates because actually they haven't got the ongoing support from parents. So we've changed the emphasis in terms of our youth work to make it a youth and family worker, to actually concentrate and try and engage families and parents much more so that they, when they come on board, can support their children and move them on. But let's translate that thought into the school situation. And I just headed this legacy. How can we, as workers, equip the staff in the schools? Because it's the staff in schools who are going to take this on through the year when we're not. Well, for some people, if you're going in as a chaplain, yes, you can take that on. But in other situations, it's not going to be you. It's going to be the people who are there who are going to have to carry on this legacy and work with the children. And I think this is a big question. We've talked about engaging staff and bringing them in. I love the thought and the idea of strawberry tea for the staff. We've got to do things like that to get them on board and to help them to see how this is beneficial for their youngsters. Now, it may be a very big job, because for many of these people we're talking about, yes, they're receptive, but they're not spiritually committed, and therefore there's a big leap that's got to be made. But unless we get the staff on board to actually carry this on in whatever way they want to carry it on, or whatever way is deemed best to carry it on, it's a little bit like the children who come and go away enthused back into their own families and then find there's a big dampener on it because there is no connect then with their parents. So those are my two thoughts. I think they tie in actually well with a lot of what has been said this afternoon. How are we going to carry on that spiritual development for our youngsters? And how are we going to equip the people who are with them day in, day out to actually promote that spiritual development?